So what happens when you photograph the largest Lego Star Wars set coming in a whopping 9,000 pieces? Well, I'm going to show you from start to finish. The team over at Mghty.pe very generously allowed me to use this set to take some very fun and interesting photos. And it was a lot of work, but also a lot of fun. As I got to play around with some new techniques that I've never used before, and also being able to photograph such a, huge Lego set is always a lot of fun. And also I've got a huge announcement throughout this video, so you definitely want to stick around because it is something that has been in the making for literally 3 years. So without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Of course, before this video begins, I want to give a huge shout out to Mghty.pe as they are the ones who supplied this Lego set. I wouldn't have been able to photograph the set without them, and also it's really great to be able to work with such a brilliant company like Mghty.pe. I've literally been buying products from them for literally 10+ years, so it's very cool to work with them on this project. I'm going to leave a link to the Death Star down below, so if you're in Australia or New Zealand, be sure to check out their site because they've got some great deals on Lego, and yeah, overall just a really great site. Been using them for 10 years and they've never let me down, so be sure to check them out. But let's get into the photos. Now, it's always a very daunting task when you're photographing a set that's over 1,000 pieces even. When it came to Minas Tirith, Barad-dûr, and Rivendell, these sets are always very daunting because there's a lot of scenes to recreate. There's a lot of pressure when moving these sets because they're just filled with so many pieces and it's very easy to break them. And the Death Star was no different, but the great thing is everything is right in front of you. It's like a really nice diorama. It's not like Rivendell or Minas Tirith where you're kind of moving the camera around all 360 degrees. It's more so right in front of you, which works great for me. Right, so we've done the difficult part, which is of course moving the Death Star. This set gets a lot of flack and I understand why, but at the same time, I think in order to have a proper opinion, you have to see it in person. I was very skeptical of it at first when I first saw the images, but seeing it in person is truly incredible because it comes with some really cool characters and also all the little different scenes. It's like a huge diorama, which I really like about it. But now we get to do the most enjoyable part, which is photographing different scenes. Just to go over the setup, it's always very standard with me, just your usual desk. Then I've got a black backdrop in the background, your Landsy bicolor light of course, and I've actually set up some LED lights as well, Lego ones to go inside the scenes. And that's always usually my setup when it comes to indoor shoots. It's very practical for me and it just kind of works. Now starting off with the very first shot. Now I wanted to recreate the scene between Leia and R2-D2 when Leia is giving R2 the Death Star plant basically. Now I know this scene took part on the Tantum 4, but I wanted to recreate it in the Death Star because we have both of these characters and also the physical Death Star plant, so I wanted to recreate it here. So I wanted to create that hall-like scene, and there isn't a whole lot of spots where you could have a long hallway unless if you really get in the set, but my camera can't really fit in there. So I took one of the halls and I turned it around so then I can create, that really far hallway, if you will. And I used some little Lego LED lights, which I borrowed from a few different sets from Brixmax. Now they are a Lego lighting company and they create really good LED lights for your Lego sets. So I took a few of the lights from different sets I own, and just to help fill negative space with light and create a bit more atmosphere. And then I was able to use this nice little gap behind the set and put a orange light because that's kind of what you see in this scene, and there's a little bit of haze and smoke in it as well. So using the smoke machine, I was just puffing that through and I created a really nice scene right here. Now the first tip I'm going to give you, it's really important when you're photographing two characters, is they're in the same line of focus. So what that means is Leia and R2 are both exactly next to each other in the same line where they're being photographed. That way you can focus on both characters as sharply as possible, because if Leia was a little bit further in front, then R2 is going to be out of focus. A good example of this is this shot right here. I had kind of the characters in this little U shape, and slowly you see the characters go out of focus. That's because they're not in a straight line and they're not going to be in that focus line unless if you have a higher aperture, say f5.6. But if you're shooting on a lower aperture, then you want to make sure both characters are in that line of focus. I hope that makes sense. And I made sure to adjust the light so that it's on both Leia and also R2. Like you can see on the very front that there's a little bit of light on him, which I think is a nice little detail. So yeah, we knocked the very first shot out of the park, I think. But next I wanted to photograph more of the actual set and show I was gonna say bigness, not bigness, hugeness, the size of this huge set. So next I wanted to move on to the Emperor and also Darth Vader exiting the ship. And I knew I was gonna make, you know, some little funny gestures in here, so I made sure to put the naked Stormtrooper in that line as like a fun joke. But I wanted to use the tilt shift lens. Now I've used this lens previously and it creates some very, very interesting effects. Tilt shift lens basically allows you to change the plane of focus. I've got a whole video explaining what it does and how it works within, you know, real life situations. But basically in this case, instead of having Darth Vader and Palpatine, it creates a line that goes from Palpatine all the way up to where Obi-Wan is. And you can change that line of focus to go around almost like a clock. And it creates some very interesting effects. So I wanted to use it right here, and I think it's very, very cool. Because you have that focus on Palpatine and Darth Vader, and then obviously you have Obi-Wan at the top. And it's basically two scenes in one, and I really, really love this shot. I wanted to use the naked Stormtrooper more, so obviously I took a funny elevator shot here. Using those LED lights again, and also that line of focus rule, I created a nice little shot here. Now, before we move on, this is the huge announcement. I have finally released my very own prints. This has been a long time in the making because I've tried to figure out which website would be the best, how I can ship it all around the world, and, you know, just basically create the best prints possible while being able to, you know, do it from New Zealand, which is very, very tricky when it comes to conversion rates, taxes, and all that sort of thing. So I was trying to find the easiest way possible to distribute it all around the world. And I think I've found the best way, and that is through Printify. And the way I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be doing a new release each month. So you basically have a month to get the prints that are on the site, and then there'll be a refresh of all new prints to go on. And then sometimes I might even do, you know, special weekend deals where, you know, International Hobbit Day, which is coming up in September, I'll have a whole line of Lord of the Rings shots for sale, and you can pick up some exclusive ones throughout that weekend. As a test, I did a nice little one here. This is Gandalf, looking very nice. And the quality is genuinely very, very good. And you can get some really nice sizes, you know, A1, A2, A3, and they just look really, really stunning. You can get them as gifts, you can get them as wall prints, and it also helps me out a lot. Majority of the proceeds that I get from these prints are going straight back into the YouTube channel and just, you know, basically giving me a budget to create better photography and better videos for you guys. Because Lego ain't cheap and it's not cheap to photograph, especially when you're going to insane locations. So just know if you're ordering these prints, then the proceeds are going straight back into the videos and also the photographs that you see. So I really appreciate, even if you just checked out the site and, you know, had a look around, and if you buy one, that would be incredible. We've had a few sales already, which is honestly really, really awesome. I haven't got the reviews in just yet because they're still shipping, but it's a very, very exciting part in my career, being able to supply my work in a physical format, which is really awesome. So yeah, feel free to check that out. It'll be at the top of the description, and let's get back into the video. Now, tip number 2 is if you're wanting to recreate a scene, you know, one-to-one, it's really important to have a controlled lighting space. Now, what that means is if you're shooting outside, it's almost going to be impossible because the sun is always moving, the clouds are always moving, so the conditions are always changing, unless if you have a perfect day where it's just, you know, blue skies and no clouds. But for this Obi-Wan and Darth Vader scene, it's really helpful to shoot in a space like a garage because I was able to block out the windows and just have, like, you know, a few different light sources, such as my studio light and a few pocket lights. And I was able to control the lighting one-to-one without any extra light that, you know, that comes from the sky. And of course, I actually used some more LED lights for the lightsabers, which is really, really fun. And it created a really nice reflection on both characters, such as Darth Vader. Like, those are real highlights, you know, coming off his face, which is really cool. And having those little lights were really helpful in this scene. Now, when it comes to creating the lightsaber, it's actually a lot simpler than you think. It's, of course, using Photoshop, and you want to use the brush tool, and you want to use a white brush. Make the size of the lightsaber the same as the Lego version, of course. And you're going to put it at the top of the hilt, hold Shift, and click once, and it creates a really nice straight line. Then from there, you're going to go into blending options. You're going to open outer glow, and then you're going to choose the color that you need, and you're going to play around with the opacity to make it look as real as you possibly can. And because I was using a stud to basically hold the little LED light for the lightsaber, it looked really wrong, so I wanted to remove that. So using the clone stamp tool and using a little bit of generative AI, now you might hear that word and, you know, shiver, but I use generative AI to remove things. I never use it to add things. It is simply to help remove things, because I can very confidently confidently remove this stuff, but I'm on a bit of a time crunch, so I'll use AI to help with that. Use AI as a tool, not something to enhance your photo. Could argue that this is technically enhancing it, but is not adding anything onto it. It is simply removing it. And this is probably one of my favorite shots from the entire one, having, you know, the robe and also the hilt and, you know, the little reflection and Darth Vader looking down at it. Simple shot, but I think it looks very, very cool. Now, moving on to the trash compactor scene. When you are photographing a scene as iconic as this, it's important to figure out where the light source is in the actual film. So watching the film, you can tell that it's coming from a, you know, a top-down light of some sort. So what I did was I, you know, took a little pocket light and put it exactly where I think the actual lights were in the movie. And that really helped with recreating this scene. And this is a really fun one because you have a lot of characters in this scene. And as a fun, you know, meme, I took Luke's leg off because he gets pulled in and put it at the bottom of the pit to make it look like he's been like pulled under. I think that's one of my favorite shots. And then I was just recreating a few iconic scenes that really didn't have a whole lot of, you know, technical abilities to them. And this was probably one of my favorite shots from the entire shoot, simply because of the atmosphere I was able to create with both the smoke machine and these small little LED lights, because it was kind of a white/blue tinge and you got a red tinge on the left. So it created a really nice balance. And it made the scene look really chaotic, and yeah, I think there's not a whole lot to say here. I think it looks really awesome. Now again, this is where lighting comes in really clutch. Having those pocket lights have been so helpful in this scene. So when we have Princess Leia looking at her home plating, getting blasted basically, and this being a play feature of the actual set, I wanted to make sure that there was some sort of light illuminating from this huge explosion. So I had the normal planet, and then I used the pocket light in the background and moved it around until I could see the highlights of it on the actual Lego pieces. And it's small details like this that go a really long way in storytelling, because I could have easily just had this, you know, switched around and no light, but the pocket light really helps here. And I made sure to get like a detailed shot of Princess Leia and that reflection of her home planet getting blasted. Small details like this are really important. So if you have pocket lights, I definitely recommend using them or buying them, because they have just been so helpful in my Lego photography. And of course, we were able to get a nice low angle shot of Ben Kenobi going to shut down the tractor beam. And on the back, it's really helpful because there's some red and blue studs that have a gap for you to basically put LED lights through. So of course I did that. I really made sure to have that focus line in line with the stormtrooper walking past as well, because you can see the background that the stormtrooper is not in focus, but the one in front is, and Ben Kenobi are, because they're in the same plane of focus basically. So that's, you know, again, when you're photographing multiple characters, you want to make sure they're in the same plane of focus. I don't even know if that's the right terminology, but it makes sense, right? And then moving on to the Palpatine scene. This was probably one of the most difficult scenes to photograph because it had a very unique lighting style. So it took a couple of attempts, but I will admit these weren't my best photos from the Death Star scene, but they're okay. And because this is already such a dark scene and Darth Vader is dark, it was really difficult to, you know, frame these shots. I mean, this one is okay, but again, I wasn't overly happy with this shot. These shots where Palpatine is zapping Luke Skywalker with his lightning, this was a lot of fun. Again, using that pocket light, I was using the blue hue and I had it just underneath the banister basically, and I was using that as a practical light to really make it look like Palpatine was electrifying Luke Skywalker here without using, you know, a brush tool or anything else, because that's really important in this scene, because you see that flashing on Darth Vader in the actual film. And then I had to do this. I had to have Darth Vader picking up Palpatine. And this is my favorite shot here, where you see Luke looking up and, you know, Palpatine's been held by Darth Vader as he's about to be thrown down the chute and actually die, okay? Palpatine doesn't magically come back. I like to think, this is a side run, I like to think that from episode 6, there's no episode 7, 8, or 9. Palpatine died in this scene. And then of course I wanted to get a, you know, front-on shot of the entire Death Star and all the different scenes there are. And this was, you know, really nice as well, because there's so many figures, you can create so many different iconic scenes and just have a lot of fun with it. And last, but definitely not least, we had to photograph him in the bathtub. It was a must, it was a must. Again, using that little LED light I used in the bathtub. I used a little light blue brush. That's hard to say, light blue light blue brush to create a little bit of mist. And this was one of my favorite shots, of course. So yeah, that was photographing the Death Star. I apologize if this was a bit of a rushed video. I've just been doing a lot with, of course, the competition, which has just closed today. So I'll be announcing the winners next week on Sunday's video. Saw a lot of fantastic submissions, so I can't wait to choose a winner for that. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'm giving away a lightsaber to the best Lego Star Wars image, and unfortunately entries have now closed, but I'll be doing a lot more giveaways for sure. But along with the competition and also getting the prints underway, I haven't had a whole lot of time to do proper videos, but after next week's video, we've got some very cool plans. I've got a trip booked for August, early August, which is going to involve snow, which is incredible because I haven't been to the mountains with snow for almost 3 years now. So that's going to be a lot of fun to photograph some really cool characters in some really epic locations. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to be a whole series and a half. But yeah, make sure to go check out Mghty.pe, check out my prints, and yeah, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.